Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I did one of my most popular sets. Here's what you'll need. With this set, I had to manipulate some of the cutters, and here's how I did it. When manipulating a cookie cutter, I start with cold dough and then I usually trace on top of it first to make sure I have the ideal shape. Do that using my scribe tool, a knife, or sometimes even the cutter itself, like you see me doing here, because I wanted the afro to be the same shape, just a bit smaller. After I get my ideal shape, I use my knife to cut it out, and then I use my fingers to pat everything into place, so that way the head looks as natural as possible, or whatever shape I'm doing. So let's get to flooding. With this girl, we are going to do what is called the wet on wet technique. It's where you use two different royal icing colors on top of each other without giving them time to dry in between. Here I'm going to be using a flood consistency icing in a lighter shade of brown to fill in her face and a dark brown flood consistency icing to fill in her hair. I'm doing it back to back like this so I can give her baby hair, aka some edges. Now to achieve this, I use my scribe tool and drag thin strips from the darker icing into the lighter icing. Make sure not to drag too many strips and not to drag them too far because we want it to look as natural as possible. While we let her dry, we're going to flood the other cookies. All of their faces are filled with flood consistency icing in different shades of brown. Now my short hair girl, she looks a bit rough, but that's because I flooded her the wrong color, had to scrape it off, and then do it all over again. Now that our first girl is dry, I'm going to fill in her puff, aka ponytail. How I do this is I take some royal icing, squeeze it all over the bare cookie, then take a damp brush and spread the icing around. I do this so that way her puff looks full just in case I have any gaps when I'm adding the curls. Now I use a golden color royal icing for the puff because when I originally did this cookie, it was inspired by my little cousin. Her mom let her dye her tips a blonde color and I just thought it looked absolutely cute on her. Once the icing is set, I now start to add the curls. So now to create her puff, we take the thick consistency icing and we squeeze it and kind of make a whole bunch of big circles, small circles, swirls, and kind of let the icing free flow until the whole puff is covered. I did about 2 layers of this. Someone in my house said her hair looks like noodles. So I took it upon myself to get a little bit of brown dust and start adding some depth to her curls. I don't know why it's so hard to say that. But as you can see, I kind of went a little overboard. And then once I realized it, I was like, hey, let me put the earring on her. And she's good to go. On to my short hair cutie. She reminds me of me back in the day. I had the same exact haircut. So we're going to use our outline consistency icing to outline her head. Then we're going to use the same icing to fill in her hair. Just squeeze the bag a tiny bit harder and fill it in using a zigzag pattern. It will give it a wave effect. Now when my hair was short, I definitely made sure my waves were spinning, so we have to do it for her. Make sure to fill in any gaps and clean the outside up using your scribe tool, and boom, she's done. Oh wait, I almost forgot about her earring. Now she's done. On to our braided lady. This style is dear to me because I rocked it as a kid and as an adult. So to create the braided look on a cookie, you have to use thick/stiff consistency icing. Bring your piping bag over the cookie, squeeze a dot and drag. We're going to repeat that step again right next to the first dot. Squeeze and drag, creating what looks like a heart. You repeat this squeeze and drag sequence right on top of the last drag area. You keep repeating these steps and you will see a braid form. This video is sped up, but I actually do these steps really slow, especially when it comes to following curves. As you can see here, I mess up a bit. Now to fill in the spaces between the bigger braids, I did the same squeeze and drag technique, but this time I only did one line. I repeat the steps so her braids look fuller. Now for her bun, I repeat the same sequence. I just do it sideways and I do it a tad bit bigger. I did 2 layers so her bun is nice and big and full. Just squeeze dots where there may be some gaps and voila, we're done. Okay, so I added this in later, but I wanted to give her a little something extra. So I added gold and voila, for real this time. Moving on to my lovely locks lady. First, I flooded her scarf. Now, I didn't do the wet on wet technique with her because I wanted to show a tad bit of separation between her head and her scarf. I flooded her scarf white and I let it dry completely so I can paint over it using food gel colors mixed with alcohol. Now, you could use whatever colors you want, but I use purple, green, blue, and of course gold. Now, it's your scarf, so you can make it how you want. Now for her locks, I started by using icing and a damp brush to spread the royal icing all over the bare cookie. Remember, that's to make her hair look fuller. Once it's set, I use my thick consistency royal icing and pipe swirls and lines all over that area. Unlike the puff cookie, I'm not doing too many swirls because they're locks. They are more loose, and even when wrapped in a scarf, they flow their own way. Now, I made some skinny lines fall over the scarf because locks are free and sometimes they fall to the side. Also, I think it looks really pretty. Now, I added some gold beads, aka sprinkles, to give her hair some embellishments. I love seeing when people have beads in their locks. I think it's really pretty. Now, adding these sprinkles was a process because they fell all over the place. I guess they were rolling free too. Okay, so I finished it off with her earrings and she's done. Up next is my curly girl. I got the most questions about her hair. Honestly, I think she's the simplest of the set, but also the most time consuming. So if you're going to try this at home, be prepared. So I start with spreading the icing with a damp brush, and y'all already know why. So moving on. To create her curls, you have to hold the bag very close to the cookie. Squeeze and start creating spirals. Now make sure the spirals are really close together so you can get that really tight curl look. And I would suggest that you practice it a few times before you actually do it on the cookie. Okay, now you will see me actually applying the technique to fill in the cookie. For the first round of curls, I'm just going to cover most of the bare cookie. Yes, I said rounds because it's not really layers, because I keep filling in blank spaces as I go, swirling tightly. As I build, I start to angle my hands in the direction I want the spirals to go, so I can achieve the style that I want. So here's some short spirals for her little bangs, and bam, we done, y'all. See, she's simple, but it takes a long time. So yeah, as you see, my glasses and my nose get in a frame a few times, but I had to get in close to make sure my girl's curls was looking right. Try to say that 3 times as fast. My last lady was added in afterwards. I almost forgot to include her in the set, but she's here now. So she was flooded the same way the previous ladies were, using the flood consistency icing, but her hair is a bit different. I use medium to thick consistency icing to fill in her hair. And after filling in her hair, I used the same piping bag to make swirls. Then I followed it up with my scribe tool to make even more. I did this so she could have that kind of blown out, big puffy curl look. Now, after all of them were dry, I laid them out on some scrapbook paper to get that good old IG pic. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please remember to hit that like and subscribe button, write some comments, ask some questions. Talk to me, people.